All right, so I'll reintroduce myself. I'm Tom, and this is Dennis. For anybody who catch that, and Dennis and I, along with Heather, my wife, own Sash and Solder. There's currently 5 of us who work here, and we specialize on working on buildings like yourselves. We do large-scale stained glass restoration as well as residential stained glass restoration and preservation carpentry woodworking. And we're very excited to be working on your windows. I don't know how close any of you, probably not very, but they were in really rough shape, which you could probably tell even from standing on the floor. They're pretty heavily damaged. The lead matrix was very deteriorated. The lead is basically what lead is, comes in lead strips. And the lead that you had in your windows was no longer capable of structurally keeping the window together. So we went and, when did we take them out? I think it was January 31st, I think I just saw on the stamp. So I think we took them right out at the very end of January. And the removal went really well. We got them back here, and after talking to David, we were on a pretty tight deadline. We're trying to, I know you guys have some special events coming up, so we got to start on them right away. And the first thing we did was start doing photo documentation. We take pictures of every panel to document the condition they are. That way we can see, you know, where the certain colors of glass are that maybe work, maybe don't work, where the broken pieces are. And then Dennis started doing all the documentation of the rubbings here.
Yep. Let me just say that if you look at this picture on the computer,
Yeah.
that's them taking it down. And it's amazing that they were able to take it down.
Yeah.
Basically, if you know the front of the building or the back of the main sanctuary, you have a loft there that you can't get there except by ladder. You put staging up.
Right.
And this came down in 6 pieces. And the center ones, which I did first, extremely heavy.
We'll show you the size of the frame of one of them.
Did you have to stabilize it before you could get it out?
Yes, we stabilized the 2 larger frames in the center, and we also had to put a lot of tape on the window itself to keep it stable. Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah, then we carefully loaded up the van and transported it back here.
Did you have extra challenge of that loft supporting the way, were they up in that balcony?
Oh, that's supported.
Yeah.
That's not an issue because it used to be,
Okay.
people used to be the women used to be
Right,
there.
but I had thought it was.
No.
Well, glad you didn't tell me until now.
No, the most interesting thing, and I think David saw us that doing this, was we were very grateful the elevator was where it was, because we basically brought the window, we left the elevator door open to back the window in, get up and over and down the stairs, especially for the tall center one, which you'll see in there later on.
Yeah.
It was, I think we had a quick moment of panic because, of course, we measured everything for the plywood. We ordered all the plywood.
So the good news, bad news is that just last week, the 2nd floor egress is complete.
Oh, there you go.
So when you bring it back,
Might be easier
oh,
going
it'd be
back.
much easier.
Okay.
That's what Portland Glass is going to use.
Oh,
Put
great.
their stuff up, so it'll
Great.
be
Okay.
much easier.
Okay. Well, this,
Either way, we had
Yeah,
it figured
yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah, but we've done all the measurements, which was funny for the plywood to board it up. And then we were taking the big one and we were like, is this thing gonna fit in the van? Because we were only thinking of covering the openings up. We measured
by
that.
about
and
an inch. Yeah.
It was, I think, 2 inches.
Yeah.
There was 2 inches left in the van to fit the big. That was lucky. We were like, we have to go get like a box truck.
Yeah.
So we got lucky on that one. Yeah. But yeah, so we got him back here, and then Dennis started doing all the documentation process.
So yeah, this is just a rubbing we make, kind of like a grave rubbing with a wax, like a crayon. And this is our map for how we rebuild the window later. It gives us lots of information about what size the lead is, what the size is, where the tie wires are for the support bars, any broken pieces, any information that we think is useful, we record here. And that is a huge help for us once we get to the point when we're rebuilding the window.
Can you speak a bit about lead? Because
Sure.
I'm ignorant about all this and I
Mhm.
hear lead-based paint, not a good thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And here you are working in lead.
Right. Right.
Do you have to take precautions? Okay.
Yeah, we do. So the biggest concern with lead, just like with small children, of course, is ingesting it. It really affects children up till about 6 years old is when it's the most dangerous. For us, we just have very good hygiene. It's really just ingesting. Doesn't absorb through your skin or anything. So we work wet. So when we're taking these windows apart, the biggest point of concern is the lead dust will get airborne because there's putty that's packed in between the glass and the lead, which we'll show you later on. But of course, after 100 years, all that lead is absorbed into the putty. They used to actually put lead in the putty anyway, just like they did paint. So that's one thing. So you can wear a mask. We work wet. We also have these wipes all over, which I would encourage anybody before you leave. That's removes heavy metals. And so the good thing for us is both Dennis and I have been working with this for so long, and both of us had higher lead levels for quite some time, and our lead levels have continued to go down year after year. So we know our hygiene protocols are effective and working. Our coworker Patrick has been with us for 7 or 8 years. He came in, we always do a baseline. So it's like parts per million, but basically, long story short, he was a 6 when he came in. He's still a 6 today. Yeah.
So we get blood tested once a year,
Yeah.
and just to
Thanks.
monitor it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's something.
And there really is no other material that could be used because you need the combination of strength and flexibility that there isn't anything else that we can use. Yeah.
Yeah.
These windows are what, 130 years old?
Yeah.
And the war,
I would bet that. Yep.
1870s.
1880s probably.
It's 1880s. Yep. Yep.
And that's the thing though. Speaking about the lead does have a shelf life. It does corrode, and over time it weakens. And after 130 years, it's a lot to ask the lead.
So basically, the great-great-grandchildren will be back here.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Well, and I think what Dennis and I always point to is sort of a testament to this overall system where you basically, there's really no maintenance to be done to this until it sort of catastrophically fails. But for basically 130 years, nobody did anything to these except for replacing some broken glass. But the lead itself and the wood frame system worked really well for 130 years. And now it's at the point in history where it needs to be done. And you really can't say that about a lot of other things within a building. Whether it's brick, it has to be, masonry has to be repointed. Obviously, wood has to be repainted. But, this system works really well, which is why, and of course, why we're still doing the same thing. A lot of our approaches, we have some modern adhesives that we use, not to get too far off track, but as long as they're reversible. But for the most part, we're doing things pretty much exactly the same people were always doing. Our soldering irons plug in, they're not on a piece of, like on a flame anymore. But other than that, for the most part, we're doing things in a very similar way than they were built 130 years ago.
How did they replace the previous broken glass without removing the whole window?
It's a good question. Yeah, so we could probably show you examples of that, of the lead, but basically what they do, David, is you can actually fold the lead leaf back because the lead is so malleable.
Yeah. Give me this green.
There's a small piece.
Yeah, so this is the lead.
Yeah.
It's very, very, and some are even more bendy. But because of that, you can open up the leaf. And if you carefully do that all the way around while it's still in place, you can then pop the piece out. Then typically what happens is you cut a new piece that's smaller because now you have to the challenge is fitting it back in. So you cut a smaller piece, which is how we know so many of these pieces were replaced because they're too small. And once you get it back in place, you fold it back down again, put in some new putty, and
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah. And you can see, I mean, even from 2 feet away, you wouldn't necessarily know that that had been opened up if the lead's in good condition, if it's not brittle and stuff and doesn't start falling apart. But it's a very effective repair temporarily,
And
not
it's,
temporarily. For a while.
and it's not always easy. It depends on the windows, you know, and anytime you have a corner that's difficult to get something out or back in, and if it's on the perimeter, it's harder because now you're kind of into the frame a little bit. And yeah, so the success varies.
What causes the glass to break over? Since there are so many things replaced and now there are broken ones, is it as simple as, yes, someone threw a stone and it broken, or are there other variables that create that?
Good question, David. You know,
Well, vandalism certainly, or accidents, moving furniture or things like that. You see that on stairwell windows, for example. But aside from force, something hitting the glass, it can break if the window is failing or the frame is failing and things start kind of sagging or buckling. Glass could break in that instance. And it also could break if it was poorly made, and maybe some temperature fluctuations happen and it could break then. That's less common.
Because it seems like there's so many
Yeah.
on the border.
yeah,
And then I started to think about it. So these this used to go up and down, these windows.
Yeah.
they were operable.
And you'd know it if before the air conditioning, if you were in the sanctuary, how hot it got. That in the day, they probably would open those windows to ventilate. We didn't have any way to get up there to do it.
Right.
But,
Especially if you have people sitting up there,
Right.
Yeah.
and so,
the women.
those cannot be opened now. These are warped so much, there's no way you could open those.
Well, and no one is going to go up there to open
But
it
even if
because
there
you can't-
was.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the way we're building them, they actually could be operable again. But to your point, with the protective glazing stuff, there's really no need for it.
Yeah.
But it's not, we just do it as a matter of restoration. Like, okay, if any, for some reason, somebody wanted to make these operable, they actually could be operable again.
What do you mean with the protective glazing? What's that?
That's the clear glass that's going on the outside by Portland Glass. So that's going to be, I believe, 1/4-inch laminated protective glazing. So that will keep vandalism. Yep. And so if somebody does throw a rock, it will bounce off the glass. I probably won't, it won't even affect the protective glazing. And will protect these windows from future damage.
Is that pretty much routine thing in restoration to do that?
A lot of people.
That's us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
That's us, that's not them.
No,
Right,
yeah,
right.
understood.
but it's costly.
But it-
It's, it's not for nothing, for sure. I mean, it's, some people choose to do it, some people can't afford to do it. In this instance, I think it's a good idea.
There was plexiglass prior, that 2 years ago got, parts of it were blown off. That's what sort of started the process. And even the plexiglass that came off were grayed from age. So you really couldn't even appreciate the stained glass significantly because of that.
Exactly. And that's the nice thing is that was all polycarbonate, basically plastic Lexan and plexiglass. And that always yellows over time with UV. The great thing about the system you guys are putting in is it's glass and it won't discolor. Unfortunately, if you drive around almost any church with protective glazing like that, it's all yellow. And to David's point, you can't even see in the windows anymore.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to see your windows from the exterior, which is a real part of it.
So I don't know if you're just incredibly strong, but that lead was far more malleable.
Yeah. You're
Oh, you
welcome.
could, yeah, I mean, it's very malleable. I mean,
Yeah.
here.
Mike, you know you want to touch
Just
it.
just don't lick your fingers.
Yeah.
Get to, the weight, the piece overcoming the strength of material, like the windows that you're gonna be making are pretty large.
They are, and there are support bars also. So I kind of mentioned that here at the rubbing, that there are copper wires that are soldered to the window in various places. And those wires get twisted around a steel bar that is lagged into the frame, and that helps support it too.
Okay.
So but to answer your question, the system can hold a lot because once it's in place, it's all working together, and so the weight is stacked really. It's not having to handle a lot of force from the side, you know.
And why is it copper for the strength? At the,
Yep, because copper solders really well to lead, and you can still twist it, and yeah.
Yeah, copper's also very malleable, like you can twist it without it breaking. If you used a different material, the wire would snap prematurely. This is the lead that was in the window, and you can kind of see
Oh my God.
how brittle it. Now, granted, it wasn't this it didn't look like this. This is just literally shoved in our buckets to go for recycling, but this is how brittle the lead was. It really you couldn't ask it to do a whole lot more. It was pretty far gone. So
So you know, when you go to old houses,
Mhm.
the panes in the windows get thicker on the bottom as they go along. That doesn't happen to these?
They don't really.
Don't?
No.
Is that a myth?
That's a myth, yeah. Yeah,
I swear I've seen it. It's
it's a very common myth, but it's not true, I'm sorry. So just a further, in case you're not really understanding what's happening with the lead, this channel accepts the lead in there, and and so we build it, putting the pieces in, and the next piece goes on the other side, and cut them to fit properly, and then everywhere there's a joint of two pieces of lead coming together, we solder it, and then turn it over and do the same on the other side.
Now, this is basically more of a simplistic, I mean, it's beautiful,
Mhm.
but somewhat more simplistic than some, I'm sure
Sure.
you see, that's just every little intricate.
Right, right.
So,
totally,
wow,
yeah,
it's
Yeah.
quite a process.
yeah.
the lead, you didn't call them channels, what did you call them?
It's called lead came.
See,
Yes.
they come in different like widths. and
Yes, yeah,
thicknesses.
there are some are round. They range from 1/8 of an inch to an inch wide. And they're different. So we usually measure several different places. We measure the width of it. We measure the thickness of the heart, how the opening between the two leaves, and the thickness of the leaf itself, and we try to match that as close as we can. And
This lead was an exact match of
Yeah.
yours.
And there is a company in Georgia that we get the lead from who, if it's something really unique and special, they can make a new dye and make the lead according to the specifications that we need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're interested, we've got probably 5,000 pounds of lead
Yeah, well,
rack over there of all different profiles and stuff.
Cindy said you got it out of, send it. For instance, that outlet that's gone by, what are you doing? You send it to,
Oh yeah, there's a local scrap yard, so we'll go take it, and it's not much. It's like 30 cents a pound. You don't get much for it in the end. Although we end up bringing 300 pounds and we get like $100. Usually is how it is.
I'm
We'll
amazed
load
that
up
you
the truck.
even recycled it.
I know.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Some guy buys it and makes bullets out of them. So somebody comes in and buys it and does that. So yeah. So we're glad to get rid of it.
Glass that's broken, trace the smaller. piece. So when you put this together, you get a new glass.
Yeah, that's perfect. We can move down here and
Yeah,
we can
that's the next stage
show
from
you
there.
some of our glass
Good segue.
selection. Perfect.
Another brown.
Yeah, exactly.
So the windows, the glass itself is about 130 years old. I had no way to know whether it was earlier than that, because I don't know how old it is.
People get a lot out of it.
No, I think so. And of course, the any replacement pieces that which was part of the cost.
Oh, yeah.
Show you an example.
We got some little chickens up there. I got them.
Sure, yeah. So that was what Dennis was talking about, was sort of looking at pieces. When we were there, actually, the easiest time to do it was when they're in there, when they're in the window, because then we're like, okay, that blue isn't right, that texture's wrong, and here, I can actually show you right here. These are a whole bunch of the pieces you started to pull out. So for instance, I think Dennis had some other ones over there, but when we looked at the window, we could tell, here you can see it's almost scalloped, so it's smaller. So what they did was they cut this piece of glass, made it a little bit smaller and stuck it in. So that was a previous replacement. But what we were finding over and over again is that a lot of the previous replacements, this is a texture called hammered, because it literally looks like somebody kind of hit it with a hammer. And when the glass was molten, they run it through a roller and it applies a texture to it. But all of the other glass in your windows are really a much lighter texture, like this. So when you had this next to it, it really stood out, you know, and it just didn't work. So we took out everything that was hammered and put in something like this. So let me find one. So for an original, Dennis, what was an original? I can get you an original piece just to kind of show you one. Oh, I just remember I actually just put it away. It was 6A. So for instance, this was an original piece of glass, and we went through our glass library, which you've seen over there. And this is what we came up with, the bright green, which we felt like was a really pretty effective match. You know, like that's really good in of what we're going for. It's like, okay, we went from basically, you know, this to that, you know.
So we're gonna have any of the top one in any more?
So we took it all out.
Okay.
Yeah, we have it all. If you're interested, it's all there.
And this
But
is basically like just basic glass, tempered glass, is that right?
this isn't even tempered.
No,
No, this is just handmade glass. It's strong, but it's not tempered or laminated in any way.
But it's handmade.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yep, this is all mouth blown glass. I know you'd asked a question about why some glass is thicker and thinner. It's because glass forever was always made in a cylinder. So you would blow a huge cylinder glass and cut it open, and then it would open up on a table. And that's why it'd be thicker in some spots and thinner in others. Now the way they make glass is they'll have it all molten, put it on like basically literally a conveyor belt, and it'll go through the roller and it'll flatten out. And most glass they make roughly about 32 inches by 42 inches wide as a full sheet of glass. And of course it's all uneven, and they cut it down to square off the sides.
Can you tell from your experience how old that other glass is?
This glass,
I'm gonna say, I believe it would be before 1980.
yeah, it's hard to say.
It's hard to say because so much of the glass looks the same. We can take glass, we have a card catalog over there of all of our modern glass samples, and it looks exactly like stuff from 100 years
So
ago.
like this that we've what Tom just showed you, the green, that is new glass.
Yeah,
Okay, that's new glass that mimics
Yeah.
the oldest glass.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
and honestly, in all likelihood, this glass is made by Kokomo in Indiana. They've been there since 1888. This glass very likely was made by Kokomo in 1880. You know, I mean, they're the oldest domestic glass manufacturer still in business in the United States, and they made glass for Tiffany before Tiffany started making glass. So we're very fortunate in that you know, when we need a replacement, oftentimes they're still producing the exact same glass that we need. Not always, but
So the pieces that will never get used again,
Mhm.
can we to make coasters out of them?
absolutely, yeah.
Well, you know,
I mean, there's-
We have a little option there.
There's piles
you know,
of,
Jack and I come from the same neighborhood. And we're looking at, can we raise some money
Right, exactly.
by using these?
Right.
Or there may be someone who's interested in using this to make their own, another stained glass
Yeah,
sure,
that has glass that they know
Out of
is,
the coaster.
is,
part of the history.
of the history
Yeah.
going back.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, there's lots of it here.
It's for discussion later.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you know,
Don't throw away yet.
No, we save
like
everything.
auction.
We save everything. So we basically, that was what we sort of did, was we went through, Dennis and Patrick spent, you guys spent an entire day. You took out every panel, you went through every single piece of glass and sort of came up with a metric. I actually have a piece of paper here, I think, in the folder, that you guys kind of went through.
It was a bit of a challenge because it had been worked on multiple times and you could see like this era, they use this color. And a hammer or whatever, and then this era they probably use this color,
Yeah.
which was a weird texture, and so it was interesting to try to figure out, okay, what's the original here, you know? The longer you look at it, it starts to make sense.
So you went through that process. Did you come up with a number of times that this was worked on?
I would have to say probably 3 at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think they came out at one point for sure. So those came out at some point, those whole frames, because we'll get to this in a minute with the border pieces, but there were sections of the border that had lead running through it. And the only way you could have repaired that is if it was flat on a workbench. So at some point, somebody took those windows out, and worked on, and likely took them out of the frames. Way back, maybe 50 years ago.
You think they might have worked on them up there?
No, because the lead was going all the way through it. Sometimes it's just the face.
No,
of the
could
lead.
they've worked on it on the loft instead
Oh,
of having
in the
to
building.
That's
take
true.
them
Take it
down,
out. Yeah, that's true.
home
Yeah.
visits, you know?
Yep, that's true. You could have done that. But this is what Dennis and Patrick did. They went through window by window, and I can pass this around, but this is the inventory of all the broken glass, of all the colored glass. And this was our inventory that Dennis could speak to of how they did the border glass.
Oh, I see what.
Was that one visit or was that multiple visits to get the inventory?
No, that was here.
We actually just had to do it
The
here.
labor's-
There's actually a lot more breakage and poor replacements than we could tell, because it's interesting. Sometimes when we're standing right in front of it, you really can't tell sometimes if it's what we would consider like a kind of a poor replacement or not.
Right.
Until we got into the studio. So there was a lot more glass breakage for sure than we had initially estimated. But that's okay. We're just gonna make it work.
Glass breaks, but it holds.
Yes, yes,
You know,
oftentimes.
Oftentimes the lead still holds it together unless it's broken in multiple pieces like a spider crack, then there's danger of sections of it falling out.
So I hope you have apprentices that are learning this skill
Yes.
Well,
along the way.
Patrick that Tom referenced is in his mid-30s, so he'll keep it going and we'll hope to someday hire somebody younger too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's our goal. Hire young
Because
people.
otherwise, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, plus he's a lot stronger than we are.
right. Yeah, you don't want to wind up like shoemakers. They
His-
can't
his
find
back's-
another one now.
His back's better than ours. But then, oh, and I was gonna have you, if you want to talk about the stencil.
Yeah, so then we get to the border glass,
One of them.
which you can see is different than the rest of the glass. It's painted in a stencil pattern, like a vine kind of pattern, and there's 2 different patterns, one for the red glass and one for the blue glass in the center. So we had to, a lot of them were replaced with just pieces of glass that didn't have any paint on them at all. Or they were replaced with just some other random stencil that looked close enough that somebody had in their studio, which doesn't match the original. This is the original. Yes, yeah, that's one exactly, that's it. So that meant Heather had to make stencils for us. She did a few different stencils cut out on a little cutter we have upstairs. 3 different ones that we used.
Yeah, it's challenging. It wasn't easy to get that stencil so perfect. It took days for her to design that and get it right.
Took a few different passes for sure. And you can see this was a reset because it wasn't quite right. The sizing wasn't quite right. And we also did a lot of sampling with the paint, so to get the paint color as close as we could, and also to get the glass color as close as we can. So these were all just very different samples of the blues to see what it looks like with the paint on it. Because it kind of changes how the color is perceived a little bit. So we fired a bunch of samples to get at the color that most closely matched the original. Same thing with the reds. See, this one's so dark, you almost can't see it. So yeah, these are all samples. Make some coasters out of these too.
So when they had done the replacement glass in the past, there were 44 that were not stenciled, is what we came up with.
Yeah,
And did you make a comment to me that in the day that they didn't have the technology that you have now to stencil, or they just decided not to invest in it?
they decided, yes.
Okay.
They could have
Yeah.
done it.
We had feet way up.
And I was just working on this panel, so I remember this one, David, but this one, for instance, I was showing you how they're inverted here. So this was the one I just finished building, and you can see what they did basically. Is they literally just stuck pieces of lead and turned the glass sideways. So there was 10 pieces of lead within here, to try to make up the window. And over
it
here.
would have been maybe 2 or 3 pieces of glass.
So it was all just these sort of tiny little rectangles, which from the floor, you really can't see. It just looks like little black lines, and that maybe the stencil didn't quite line up right. Maybe the pattern wasn't correct, and your eye maybe would go to it. But would be hard to pick up. But now Dennis and Patrick and Heather figured that all out. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's another really weird place.
So
Oh, yeah, please.
historically, are there certain patterns for certain time eras? Or was it just what somebody liked at the time, or?
Oh, well, I'm sure each studio probably had like some version of, some version of foliage that they used, and they probably used circulated glue. But probably was depending on the studio, and certainly a case of a time would impact that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because the building was originally a church, you believe that influenced how this was done?
Well, with these, because they don't really have any sort of iconography or something, these
Right.
were probably put in to give some interesting color
And light.
some light to the windows, with the idea that maybe somewhere down the line, somebody would want to pay for a memorial window that was more ornate. And that's what these were usually put in for.
I mean, you see the window is seen the best at night,
Yeah.
always.
Yeah, from the exterior.
Right.
Yeah, these are gonna look great from the exterior.
Yeah.
But yeah, the border glass was definitely a process, but we're really happy with how they came out. They're pretty much perfect. I don't know if you could pick out like where the old ones would be in here versus the new ones. I can shut the light off so you can see it a little bit better. But I know there's at least 3 old ones in there. I think there's only 3 left, maybe, of the old ones, and the rest are all replacements.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's right.
You're basically
More
building
faded,
windows, you're
right?
making new windows here.
Yep, the top right, exactly, because it's a little bit more faded.
Yeah.
But as far as the color and the pattern,
Oh, no, they have.
Perfect.
yeah,
Great job.
It looks more authentic, I think, because of the lack of complete
Mhm.
match.
I agree. Well, we always try to reuse old as much as we can. As long as they weren't totally smashed, there's even some that maybe had 1 or 2 breaks in it, and we would, we kept the old ones and just put the really thin pieces of lead between it. But the color came out great. The red was all glass made in Germany. antique mouth blown glass. Well, it's not antique, it's made, but they call it antique. It's current, but this is all glass from Germany. And it's made exactly the way they've been making it for hundreds and hundreds of years. And it's very bright glass, which is nice. The borders.
So our hope is with the swapping out the replacement or the previous replacement glass is that it will be a bit more uniform now. When they go back in, they'll have a bit more of a compatible tone with each other, and nothing is gonna stand out, and it'll be more like it was originally intended to be.
Paint fades, does the color of the glass that fade or?
It doesn't, it does, sometimes glass solarizes a little bit in the sun. And some of this glass did, and the reason we know that is we can see the edge of the glass where it was covered by lead and putty is still the original color. So some of the sort of russety colored ones have darkened over time. But they won't darken anymore. I think they've done what they're gonna do.
About the textures,
Mhm.
is that indicative of any kind of quality or like a particular style, or just kind of just a different texture? Some
Just
people
different
like
texture.
tastes.
It's a little bit time period too. I think this texture was very common during this time period, especially in this area.
Mhm.
Saw that kind of starburst one on your rubbing.
Mm.
And I've seen that pattern
Florentine, yeah,
before.
yeah.
That's more modern and more kind of architectural looking.
Yeah. I don't know if I can find it somewhere in here. But yeah, of course, it depends on how much you were trying to diffuse the light too. And how dark you want it to be, you know, sometimes you go into a church, it's very heavily painted with dark glass and it's very somber. Whereas these are very bright and I think pretty joyful windows, in a sense, you know?
I like doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, compared to what you see in the Catholic Church, yeah.
But yeah, I think they're gonna look really nice, like Dennis said, they're gonna look much more as they were meant to look originally.
A little bit ago, you said you work wet. Did you say you work wet?
Yeah, just spray everything down. Yeah, so we spray as long as we know the paint is stable, we'll spray it with water and just a very mild detergent to keep the dust down. So we don't just.
Only when we're taking them
Yeah,
apart.
yeah, exactly. At this point, everything's lead safe. and-
Not the rest of the time you don't.
No, just when we're disassembling it and cleaning. Yeah, mostly just disassembly. So the dust doesn't get airborne.
Yeah.
So we have like all of our vacuum cleaners, we have 3 of those and those are $850 vacuum cleaners because they're the only thing that are true HEPA. So we know when we're vacuuming, this is one thing homeowners do by accident, they'll vacuum like lead paint up and then they exhaust it throughout the house. Because it's not a true HEPA system, but we can run this and you can put something, you can actually test it. Where the air is coming out and there's no dust coming out at all, so they're very effective now. We're lucky because the tools have gotten so good. Most of the time, we don't even need to wear respirators or masks because our dust collection systems have gotten so good. So
About how many hours did it take you to disassemble the whole thing? All six paintings.
they were kind of falling apart, so it wasn't that hard.
Yeah, putting it back together is gonna take longer.
In fact, we gotta take much longer,
Yeah.
I'd say probably about 3 days.
probably 3 days. Yeah,
3 days.
yeah. We time track everything.
25 hours to
Yeah,
30 hours.
yeah. I can tell you if you want to know.
No, I was just
Yeah.
curious as,
Yeah.
So this
We
one is,
time track everything and
it's
T
easy to
sheets,
put back
which is
together.
good, so then we actually more use it.
Patrick was working on
We have a
this.
like
And
project
before that,
someday. We can look at a diamond window like this and say, okay, this is how many hours this took. This took 560 hours to do this job. It was roughly like this. Can I use that information when we go to bid this job? It's very effective for
How
us.
busy are you guys? Like how many jobs do you run at the same time?
And we also alternate.
Usually like one big one, a couple medium ones, and a few small ones. So like just finished a large project up in Northeast Harbor, Mount Desert Island, just near Bar Harbor. We worked on a house. This is the second winter we've been working on it, and we did 34 leaded glass windows and all transoms. It's a family home. It's been a family for 130 years.
Just like a Rockefeller house.
Basically,
Yeah.
yes, it is. I can't remember how many windows there are in the house. I remember when we first met the contractor and the house, I said, well, I said, is there a bathroom you want us to use while we're here? Just out of respect to the homeowners, that they said, well, there's 16 of them, just pick whichever one. It's like, well, why don't you tell us which one to use? But the family doesn't use in the winter, so for us, it's perfect. So that's a great job for us, because the house manager's there. There's 4 people working on the house all winter long, painting, doing something. The family comes back on Memorial Day. Heather and I are actually going up next week to go to the install, and then finish it. There's a lot of time for the meeting, so.
My son-in-law, who's British, in England, he has a degree which they call construction engineer.
Okay.
Here we call it somewhat of a civil engineer.
Sure.
He's working for a construction company that's doing a multi-million-dollar construction deal on Street Island for a family that lives in Chicago and spends maybe a month a year.
Okay.
And they demolish buildings.
This is such a handy tool.
Piece of glass.
So it's all.
It's got this.
I said, are they paying in cash? He said, pretty close.
Yeah.
So David, I was just saying, this is the process of reletting it back together, tucking this lead inside of another lead, then we'll fold that down again. So
General
it's nice and flat
contractors
up
create.
here.
They're
And that
still
just helps
happy-
give it a little more
happy
strength
do it.
to have
Because the
them kind
windows
of
need to be
overlap.
done.
in a little bit.
They-
Where do you
we're
put
not
the
quite as
putty?
bad.
The putty goes in between the glass and the lid.
Otherwise, the
Okay.
In that
home's in very good
channel.
condition.
Okay.
They have a
And
30-year
then we
restoration
turn,
plan.
after it cures
The
for about a week, we'll
architect
turn it over and do the same thing on
You
the
know,
other side.
Yeah.
Therefore.
And I'll show you that over there. We have one on the bench there that has some putty in it.
Tear it down.
Right.
Yeah.
And paint is anything of note,
Eight.
or because it doesn't need any maintenance?
It doesn't, no. So the paint is,
That.
it's got, has some ground glass in it and some metal outside. And it is painted on the glass and then fired in a kiln. And so it holds, if it's fired correctly, it adheres to the glass kind of the same way a glaze on sort of mix works. So it's very stable.
Most basically over and over.
The only thing you don't want to do is kind of scrub it, you know? Yeah, you might scratch it.
And you just do like a roller.
No, what we did was take the piece of glass and we covered the whole thing with paint, an even layer of paint. And then let it dry, put a stencil on top and took a brush, with very short bristles and scratched away. And that's how we got there. Yep.
David,
So yeah.
Yes, Jenny.
I have a question.
Wait, okay. Wait.
I was just curious, what, is there
Just wait a second,
anything?
wait a second.
Yeah.
Question.
Okay. Hi, I was just curious if there was anything that we should know about ongoing maintenance and cleaning.
Cleaning wise, all you want to do is really just like a soft cloth or a like a duster or something like that. That's all I would do.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's move over to this bench over here and you can talk about cement. Yeah. This panel has been cemented on one side. And so you can see a little bit of black putty there. And then I'll show you. It's a linseed oil based putty. And it's we buy it already tinted black. And so then it's kind of, you don't really see it, it kind of disappears. And basically we do it with a brush and we brush it into all of the crevices here. And then after we've done that, we kind of clean it up a bit. and fold down the lead just a little bit to help kind of lock it in place. And then, yeah, we clean it all up, and this will stay now for about a week or so before we turn it over and do the putty on the other side.
So it really has to harden.
It needs to skin over on the exterior, on the surface, and it doesn't really harden completely inside. But it helps give some strength, and it's waterproofing as well. And also prevents like any sort of strange light leaks that might happen.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Ridiculousness of the process that you guys go through this. It's really all of the catalog.
Thank you. Yes, it's a lot. I mean, as you can imagine, if you don't have a good record of what you're doing, you get to that place and you don't have good notes, you're like, what are we doing? You know, because there isn't anything left anymore, you know. So you really have to have all the information like Dennis said on the rubbing and what the lead dye was, because otherwise you've got a pile of glass.
Yeah.
You gotta put it back together again.
Now what do we do?
But yeah, this one's pretty close to being done. This is the one where I was saying it earlier, where we sort of chose to keep an original one and just put a couple pieces of lead in here that are really unobtrusive. Because it just felt like, well, we don't need to replace that because it's not smashed. And we'd rather keep some of the originals. So this one's got what? 5, 6, 4, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 original pieces. The rest are all replaced.
And the centerpieces?
Oh my gosh, there were so many. I mean, I have pictures. I actually have a picture probably right here of how many broken pieces
A lot.
were in this one.
So this is mostly new.
I would say yes. Majority is new. Yep. Actually, let's see.
That's amazing.
I just finished that one the other day. So this is how many broken pieces were in the top half of the window. Here's that Florentine again, that texture stuff. This is only just in that top half of that window is how many broken pieces were. So you can see the greens were a little too dark. This one was like a little too teal. This was all the textures. So yeah, I would say that's at least half replacement.
That's
Probably.
still unbelievable that you could salvage half.
Yeah. Yeah. And we try to salvage as much as we can. But yeah, this was the one. That was the one that had. Yeah, you can see the texture a little bit better in here, where it just wasn't quite right. But I think, yeah. Anyway, that's a different project. But I can show you if anybody's interested too. I'm happy to show you. We tagged most of the photos. We haven't done. We haven't been able to tag all of them, but if anybody's interested, these are all your project so far that have been tagged in the computer. Here's the removal.
We should have some of this.
This was the big. This is one of the snow day clearings. I was taking a picture and the plow truck came back.
They are.
But I mean, honestly, this is how your windows were. I mean, this is how much glass was missing. I didn't take anything out. I mean, that's. There was a lot of broken glass. I mean, this is where we were taping it up just to try to stabilize it. These are all the pieces that were missing. I think this is the one where you can see, this is the window I just worked on. So you can all remember I was telling you all those 10 pieces of lead.
Yep.
Even at this distance, you really can't even see it that much. And we were up in the balcony, obviously, the choir loft. So from the floor, you would never know that there's 10 individual pieces of lead there. Same here.
Tell me about the tape that's going across,
Oh, it's just painter's tape.
just to make sure that they don't fall out.
Exactly. Just to stabilize the window,
Blue
just
tape.
for removal. Yeah, exactly. Doesn't leave a residue or adhesive or anything. But yeah, so this was, I think this is where we had the staging set up. You can see the staging here. So we kind of came down the staging here and out that way. And this is where I remember you were talking earlier about, this is the plexiglass that is all kind of yellowed. Of course, this one fell off. So this was the plywood. This section had come off. So I think, from a heating standpoint, you figure there's no plexiglass here and there's literally holes in the window. So I think you guys are going to be a lot better off in the future. Because these are, you can see here, there's a hole here, there's a hole here, 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 and there's no plexiglass here.
The gas company won't be happy with us.
That's okay, they've done all right. But yeah, so this is sort of the process photos. This is when Dennis, they were just starting to look at the stencil. There's a lot more photos we haven't tagged, and we can send you guys a Dropbox file of some of the photos. This was kind of early on. This is us working with it wet here, where we're cleaning all the glass in large bins that we have. So yeah, anybody's interested, I can take you through those.
Thank God they met at IMAX.
All right.
No, just yeah, but I'll never know, so don't get.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my wife's a graphic designer, so Heather is the one who did the stencils, which is pretty time consuming. She did it all in Adobe, I think, but don't quote me on that, or maybe Acrobat, I don't remember. That's not my program, that's not what I do. So she did it all, so she designed all the stencils.
So I'm looking here,
And then we have a
there are
cutter.
different
She
shades
has a
in this.
studio upstairs.
This is a new one.
Unit
Okay.
that
And
cuts.
so I didn't get this dull effect,
That-
but
yeah,
in the
yeah.
light, you don't see
I
it.
did.
see that.
Yeah.
Very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if this dull effect is just from time or if it was how they originally did it. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you came to look at the first time we took it down, and now this is hanging up out the window. Will you be able to tell that this one's different than this when it's hanging?
I don't think so. I mean,
Like,
that-
I'm
that's
looking
a
at
good
that,
example.
I can't.
Yeah, so you won't be able to tell. Because these are the same.
So this is our map, so we build right on here, so when we're building the window, you can actually see the rubbing that Patrick finished, so he's built that window directly onto here, so.
Regardless of what carrying something that's external.
That
Now that this
here,
really,
you know,
story where it's just going. Now this.
really has. And center.
Right, You know, that kind of stuff is something I'm gonna go, pretty young, but.
Yeah, I know.
Are there number of people?
It's talked about a lot in our history.
I'm sure.
It is like, we're, we can only do it. So right now we have a couple of ways that are in their thirties, really good time, and we do anticipate that they're.
I meant more in general, you know, like is there interest in younger?
There is, I mean, it's still small, but there is some, and there is an interest in. Kind of the older crowd.
Many years ago, we were very fortunate to get to space at the time.
And that's
Now, especially.
Yes.
Okay.
So we got this space 10 years ago, and this is where our studio used to end here. So we had.
We can show you the frame.
Okay, next stop.
Yeah, if anybody's interested.
Next part of the tour.
If anybody's interested in the carpentry.
This place is bigger than I thought.
I put
So
this,
this is. Now imagine us bringing that down out off of the loft and around the stairs. The frame itself isn't too bad. Once you put it all together, it's.
Sure thing. So I'll show you what Tracy's been doing here. So So Tracy's our preservation carpenter. We're very fortunate. For a long time, we had to outsource this architectural millwork. We're lucky. We're in a great. There's 60 artists and craftspersons here at the Button Factory. Some great wood shops back here. So in the past, we used to have to have the guys out back help us with it, but now Tracy does it all. So this is, if anybody knows anything about window construction, this is called a stile. This is a stile and this is a rail. So this is the bottom rail. So this is the bottom half of the window of that. And we knew when we went on the site visit that we were likely going to have to replace this. So this is what the original bottom rail looked like. So,
Lost some.
yeah. So this was, we knew we were going to have to replace this one. So, and then we found sort of more rot here. So Tracy got down to the good wood of the stiles here, fixed the mortise in here. This is all new. This is all mortise and tenon joinery. So this is basically a new bottom rail. And by the time it's all sort of painted and stained, you won't even notice it from the inside or the exterior.
What kind of wood is it?
It's actually pine, it's just really good pine. Yep. So there's a great, yep, Southern Yellow Pine. There's a great place near us called Highland Hardwood that has really great stuff. I don't know where the stock was, but it's somewhere around here that she got. She buys by the large boards, and it's pretty straight grain, clear pine. So this is a big part of the process, obviously, is restoring the sashes. These have been sanded down to bare wood. The repairs are done. This will be oil-based, primed, painted. This is kind of what they were like. This is what they look like beforehand. You can kind of see. So yeah, so we get all the paint off, the exterior in particular, and
So what happens here? You have all this cracking. It's gonna have to be replaced.
no, that should we'd probably be able to do some simple epoxy repairs to that. Yep. We do use epoxy on weather checking and kind of cracks like that. You can see by the time it's, this is a very solid, stable repair, and it'll hold for many, many years. So
This was the only one that was that bad.
this one over here, you can see is the process of being repaired.
This is one part.
Yeah. So she consolidated. So what she was able to do, she cut down that part. She's using a little bit of epoxy to consolidate some of the rotted areas. She's putting in a new tenon there that she'll cut down the tenon once everything's cured. So she did that, I think, on Thursday before she left for the day. But yeah, that's when it's all said and done. Very stable, works really well.
I mean, that thing looks so rotten out, you couldn't even use it for kindling.
No, I don't think so. Oh, yes, absolutely. So we were talking earlier about the support bars and the copper tie wires. So once the stained glass panels are fully re-leaded, you saw the putty and all that. One of the last things we do is we solder on copper tie wires. And you can see that on the rubbing. It had an X on the rubbing of where the wires went. So the copper tie wires will be soldered directly into the lead. The panel will be put in the frame, and the wires will be twisted around these bars here. So this helps support the window, as you can imagine.
And those are all original.
Yeah, these are all original.
Okay.
So this, as you can see, once the system is working, it works really well. The wires really support it, and the bars help a lot. So yeah, that's sort of how that system works. Because it's the panel is just directly wired to all these bars.
In the windows you took out, similar to the side windows in this sanctuary, there's ropes.
Yes.
Tell me, you're gonna put ropes back in, and or how does that system work or develop?
So yeah, so that's a traditional counterweight balance system. Exactly, David. So basically, a window like this probably weighs about 50 pounds. So there'd be two 25-pound iron weights within the frame of there, and the ropes go up, and over and through those pulleys with the idea that those 25-pound weights pull the window up so you can open it.
You can see the channels here where the
Yeah,
rope would
yeah,
go.
yeah,
Yep.
And fed through and knotted here.
Typically for windows like this that are really heavy, if you were going to make them operable, you can use steel chain and it won't ever really break. But given that these are up in the choir loft and nobody's ever going to go up there, I wouldn't recommend making them operable. But you could certainly, the sanctuary windows could be made operable. Is there protective glazing on the exterior of those? I can't remember.
Yes.
There is, okay.
Yeah.
So,
So the, some of them have the counterweight still attached and some don't.
they probably just snapped.
Yep.
Over the years. Yep. UV kind of breaks down the sash cord and they just break and you hear a thud because a weight fell down and hit the bottom of it. So
You mentioned how heavy they are.
Mhm.
So how heavy are they?
I think these are 50 pounds ish, 60 maybe. What would you say? More?
Yeah,
Maybe
they're
75.
a little less heavy than you would think. So it's surprising.
Mhm.
But when you add the glass, that's gotta be 200 pounds pretty close.
I don't think it's that
Won't be
much.
that bad?
No, no. Lead is
That's
very
what I
heavy,
meant,
but
like a
yeah.
whole finished window. Obviously, it's whatever
Yeah.
size it is, but I'm just wondering how.
I think it's less than 100 pounds, believe
I
it or
think
not.
so, yeah,
Yeah.
even the
Even with
larger
the
one, yeah.
with the panel in it.
Because the glass is not like really super chunky, the lead is not super chunky. It's, I mean, the frames are not even that thick, you know, this side, sure.
Yeah.
Mine's lighter.
Yeah.
Mine's a light one,
Yeah.
That's cool.
I'm gonna see if I could find one where Tracy did some of the restoration on these. Show you what one of the restored windows look like. These windows are in really bad shape. This was a job we were working on in Northeast Harbor all winter long. And I know she had to replace some rail on some of these.
I don't know if we'll even be able to see.
I don't think you can, the only way you can see it is at the bottom. Yeah, I can't even tell anymore. These, but anyway, long story short, some of these whole sections had to be replaced. And by the time they're painted and primed, can't even tell. So this is basically what yours will look like when we're done with them.
It's really lovely.
Yeah.
So the green's the interior.
Yeah, it just happened to be, that's what the color was. These were all casements this job we were working up in Maine all winter.
Is that fine too?
Was that pine? also?
Yeah, the silver pine, yep, exactly, yep. Yeah, it's in very good condition, yeah. And these windows didn't have any storm windows on them. It's kind of amazing. It's really exposed and they've held up really quite well. But yeah, your windows will essentially look like that once they're all painted. Chairs are done.
Like sustainability, not necessary phrase.
Yeah, not necessarily, really, this is totally fine. In a lot of cases, it's probably better than what we can get today.
Yeah.
Because it's old.
It's old growth.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you find, I'm sorry, do you find stained glass and relatively non commercial, non residential is like all over the country?
Definitely, the old stuff, it really depends on when places were settled. So you do get a lot in the Northeast. Then, you get, as you go further west, you get different eras of it, so you might get the prairie style stuff in the Midwest from the Frank Lloyd Wright era time period, and then, yeah.
I would say San Francisco would be really more ornate Victorian.
Victorian style, yes, exactly, so it does change by region.
What's interesting here in Portsmouth is so old that there's very little decorative arts period in our own town here. It's, there's just not a lot of leaded glass and stained glass. Of course, in North Church, some of the churches are, but as far as the homes, there's very little stained glass and Portsmouth. It's just practical, yeah, exactly. So Portsmouth is almost too old for it. But, yeah. Anybody have any questions you could think of that we didn't address or?
Well, thank you so much
Oh, you're
for
so
doing
welcome.
this and,
I'm so glad you all could
wonderful.
make it.
Such a privilege.
yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What is the timeline now? For the finish of the project?
Getting close.
Probably another month, I would
I'd
say,
say,
right? maybe.
Guess the
That's
question
pretty
for you
short.
is what's coming up? I know we said we can't make, I think April 16th or 14th, we were shooting for something, and I don't think we can't make that. Didn't you have another big thing coming up,
The
David?
second Saturday of May.
But this one,
That's, that'll happen.
that's about.
That can happen. I knew there was one we were hoping to make, but we couldn't, but I'm very confident we can make second weekend in May.
Yeah.
You'll be invited.
Oh, good. Sounds lovely.
Well, thank you all very
The
much.
food's always good.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for.
This has been great. Thank you.